Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with your host, Christina Nitchman.
This is your host, Christina Nitchman. Each week, Savvy runs weekly broadcasts providing entrepreneurs and successful individuals a platform to express their dreams, hopes, lessons learned, expertise, and wisdom with the world. Our guests today are Mike Veny and Brad Raney, sharing tips for inspiring entrepreneurs. We start the hour with Mike Veny, a sought-after keynote speaker and professional drummer. He delivers entertaining, engaging, and educational experiences to conferences and events around the world. Find out more about Mike at unleashyourgroove.com. Brad Raney has spent most of his life entertaining people, either on the radio, television, or in live events. Brad has a strong charisma, sharp wit, and likable charm, have made people laugh and think. Find out more about Brad at bradraney.com. Hi, Mike. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you this evening?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me on your show.
I'm so happy to have you, a fellow New Yorker out here joining me. And you have quite a journey to entrepreneurship. I want you to start out by letting the audience know a little bit about your background and what brought you to this wonderful world of entrepreneurship.
Well, thank you. A lot of things brought me to entrepreneurship. Number one, I was one of those people that just never wanted to have a regular job. That seemed a little too boring to me. And I really liked what I saw from the successful entrepreneurs when I was younger that were out there, the people who were building multi-million-dollar businesses. I just found it really inspiring. And people who had freedom to travel where they wanted to, when they wanted to, do what they want to. So I thought that I would make a good entrepreneur. And I learned the hard way that it takes a lot of work. And my product was my drumming. I was a drummer professionally for many years. I still am. I don't do it as much as I used to. Now I do it more in the corporate setting, which we can talk about in a little bit. And I'm also a speaker who speaks about mental health. So it's a really cool job. I tell people that I either get to talk about my issues or hit stuff. That is my job.
So what in particular drew you to working in the area of mental health?
You know, I didn't start out thinking I wanted to be a mental health speaker. And to be totally transparent, 2011, I had a mental health breakdown and I reached out to a professional, which is a good thing to do if you're in a crisis with your mental health. And her recommendation was to hire me to speak at her conference. And I was frustrated because I was, in a lot of emotional pain. And at the same time, I said, well, why not try it and take some money and speak about my issues? And within a year after that, I was speaking around the country at mental health conferences, and people wanted to hear what I had to say.
Wow. Isn't that interesting, Mike? I found that for quite a few of the entrepreneurs who have either listened to the show or come on as guests, that many of their transformations that have led to what they do today in entrepreneurship led to certain issues falling apart in their life, whether it be that they had major illness or, kids went off to college and they didn't know what to do next, a divorce, all that sort of thing. It's interesting how sometimes the biggest turmoil in our life leads to the biggest transformation.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I think a lot of people listening to this, especially for people who are starting out and trying to figure out what they want to do, we get caught up in our own heads trying to think about that perfect idea. And sometimes the perfect business idea is already there in your life if you're willing to look at it and surrender to it. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, it's true, Michael, because I remember early on when I started my first business, it was financial consulting, what I did in corporate, and I didn't love it. I didn't have a super great passion for it, but it was interesting. My mentors at the time said, ask people around you what they see you doing or what's your greatest gift. And they just kept saying the gift of gab. You connect great with people. I love talking to you. And I'm like, well, that's not helpful. What the heck is that going to be as far as a career? But sometimes just stepping back and just giving yourself that space to see what's right in front of you. Now, Mike, I remember when we first spoke that you had some really, specifically 2 great tips helping inspiring entrepreneurs. What were those tips?
What were those tips? One of the things that I do every day is I read. I actually take my eyes and either look at a magazine or a book, and I read through books very, very fast. I try to get 2 hours of reading in a day, which seems like a lot, but it's actually a wonderful, wonderful part of my day. The thing that I learned about reading that really helps me as an entrepreneur is it improves my decision-making ability. One of the things that I found that a lot of younger entrepreneurs struggle with is when they want to solve problems, they go to their brain and try to think about it. How am I going to, make more money or fix my cash flow problem? And I've learned through the years, painfully, that it's best to seek wisdom, not in your own head, to find answers. So I try to keep my brain power stuck to my creative stuff, like playing a drum solo or something. But when it comes to business decisions, always seeking wisdom. And what I've also found is that a lot of times when I read, I don't necessarily remember, but it gets my brain working, and it really helps improve the quality of conversations that I have with people, because I have stuff to talk about from different perspectives all the time. So I think reading is really important for the entrepreneur. I always suggest to people to get themselves on a reading program. So if you're listening to this, you should create a reading program for yourself, a book list like we used to have in school, like a summer reading list, and try to really stick to it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Mike. It's one of my absolute favorite things to do, pastimes, is to read. And I can totally vouch for the fact that when things are difficult, turning to a person who's been there, maybe several steps ahead of me in the business game, has really helped me move along much quicker than I think I would have had I tried to do it all by myself and sit there in my muddled mind trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, a perfect example of something that happened this summer, like many of us in business, I was having some cash flow issues, some, a short period of time in the summer where just money was not coming in as planned. And like many of us entrepreneurs, I was panicking because I have bills and all those things in life that you need money for. And I decided to get a book on getting referrals. Word of mouth marketing. And the name of the book is called $1 Million Referrals by Alan Weiss. And it was a very, very detailed book. There's a lot of text in this book and a lot to absorb. And I read it as fast as I could, probably in about 3-4 days, get about 2 hours a day on the book. And I was really anxious to finish this because I needed money. And I said, I'm going to try some of what he says. And within a few weeks, my schedule was booked with new work.
Wow.
Because of what I applied. I applied it right away. And that's the other thing that I suggest to people is when they take notes and actually put them into systems, it really, really makes the reading come to life very quickly.
Yeah. And that is a major key there, because you can read things and go, oh, that's nice, and shelf it and not use it. Or you could just take and say, okay, let me just take this piece. Maybe you're not ready to swallow it all at once. Because there was a woman I had on last year who was talking about increasing wellness in your life. And she said often the biggest mistake she saw is people try to take on everything at once, improve their life and wellness completely. And often if you're really living unhealthily, it's almost, not possible, but it's very discouraging. So you give up. But she said, if you take those little steps, maybe just, okay, I'm going to do this one thing, then you see, okay, I succeeded, then add another thing, and then, layer it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. That's it. One thing at a time. But the important thing for us entrepreneurs, and there's a great book out there. I could just talk about books all day, everybody. So if you're listening, I'm not going to talk about books all the time, but there's a great book called The E-Myth Revisited that many entrepreneurs have read. It's like the classic entrepreneurship book. It's a short story. It's a very, very fun book about a pie business. But one of the things it talks about is writing down your systems, whatever it is that you do, writing down how you do things. And that has really helped me. And so what I do is I take all the information that I read, and even if I don't apply it right away, I eventually put it into systems so it becomes an actual part of my daily business processes.
And then when you upscale one day and you start having a huge enterprise, now you have a systems manual that you can pass on to your other employees.
Exactly. And a nice binder.
That's right. And we talked a little bit beforehand that you have a very unique way also of connecting and networking. That's a little different than many folks in the city. Share a little bit about that.
Yes, and I know for a fact that some of my friends who are entrepreneurs in New York City might be listening to this podcast, so you can all call me out on this, but I don't network the traditional way. In fact, for the past year, I have not had business cards on me. So a lot of times when you go to networking events, people have an intention of trying to make a connection with someone and exchange cards, and there's a conversation that it's almost like a ping pong match. This is what I do, this is what I do, and you talk about ways you can work together, and hopefully you follow up with people. And I just found that too fake. I really found it just so fake. It just bothered me. And I steer very clear of networking events right now. And so the way I really worked on my networking was to focus on never pitching myself to anyone and never having an agenda. So if you and I met at an event and you and I were talking, I would ask you about what you do. And if you asked me, I'd say a little bit, but I'm not interested in you having any information, because I believe that relationships go through the process of you have to know someone, like someone, and then trust someone. So I want to get to know you for who you are as a person first. And what I've found is that it allows me to really develop a bond with people, because the way we make friends when we're kids, so let's just say you and I were in the playground together in kindergarten, which we could have been, right? Yeah. And you had Nikes on and I had Nikes on, but Joey had Reeboks. Joey wouldn't be in the group with us, but you and I would develop a bond because we have something in common. And if you think about any relationship that you have in your life, it started out with you having something in common with the person. So what I focus on when I meet people, it's not anything about what they do or what I do, but what we have in common. For instance, you and I both live in New York City. We discovered that, right? There's a great start to a friendship right there, just on that alone. Then I'm going to start talking about my favorite restaurants, and you're going to go at it with me. We're going to grab food at some point. So the thing that I suggest to people is to not have an agenda. The other thing that I do is I make it a point to help out people in any way I can, and brace yourself for what I'm about to say, but expect nothing in return.
Lovely.
Go out of my way to help others make money and expect nothing in return. And you know what? It was hard to develop that. It's something I still have to struggle through at times, but it has really increased my happiness, and everything has always come back to me twofold without me having to ever think about it.
Yeah, it is so true. It's universal truth. It just is. I mean, when you give, whatever you need, if you give to others, it will come back to you. I always find that God just provides, so if I graciously just not think about it, be grateful and give, it will come back, maybe by not the same person I gave to, maybe some other way, but it will come back. And of course, there's that added, you can't expect it to come back. You have to freely give from your heart.
Yes. And it's very difficult. I actually learned about this in a book by Bob Burg. So there I go with a book again called The Go-Giver. And actually I ended up emailing him because one of his laws in the book is give without keeping score. And to be totally honest with you, Christina, it pissed me off when I heard that, when I was listening to it. And because I'm like, how could you give without keeping score? Like that's impossible. And I emailed him. I think I sent a nasty email, but he replied back very nicely and said, Mike, it's a process, not a destination. So for those of you that are listening and who might be keeping score in your relationships, this is not something you can change overnight, but it's something you can strive to. And I guarantee if you try it, it will be an amazing thing in your life.
Yeah. And Mike, here's something I realized, and it took me a while as well. When I first started my business, I did what everyone else did. I went with my hundreds of business cards to these events and passed them out like candy, and then would go home, follow up, because I'm really good with the follow-up, follow through, and call them all back the next day, email them, and they're like, go away. Who the heck are you? Did I really meet you? I don't remember you. So it was a very frustrating process. But when I dropped all of that, I think it was about a year in, I had enough, and I started my own network. And I decided the one thing that was not allowed at all in any shape or form were business cards.
Yes.
Yes. No business cards. Leave them outside.
Yep.
But it was so amazing because I found I built friendships over years that, years later, maybe 2, 3 years later, they sent me a number, like most of my referrals have come from those people. And they might have not become clients. Maybe it didn't serve them or their business or where they're at, but they sent me people or their people sent me people. It just became a huge, amazing networking community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. And I love that. And so I can say on your show, I want to be part of that community now.
You are now. You're the savvy community right now.
I'm in the savvy community. And one of the other things that I always have to remind myself is most things that we have gotten in this world, and I'm talking everything from opportunities academically to jobs to even romantic relationships, most of the time they come from a loose connection to someone else, not a deep friendship, but a loose connection. Just someone knew that you blank and connected you with blank. And that's how things come together. So that's why I think it's very important to really put that into your life, especially for the people in New York City who are crazy busy, to take time to develop relationships with people.
Yeah. And Mike, here's something I noticed. You tell me if you've noticed it as well. Not only have I gotten really amazing opportunities, maybe from not the direct people I know, but loosely from people they know perhaps or their friends, but they have really connected me in a position I wanted to be in because I was very focused, and it's something that everyone around me noticed I was going in this direction. So that kind of laser focus kind of brought the people and events to me without me having to ask for it. Have you noticed that happening to you?
Absolutely. And, I almost feel like this is another whole episode for you. And I want to say it's a combination of trust that you give people when you are focused and not all over the place. So I know many people who introduce themselves and tell me the 10 things that they do and show me a business card with like 10 bullet points of, they're a basket weaver and a construction worker, all this. And it's like, what do you do? And one of the things that's important for you to understand if you're listening to the show is that our brains think in categories. So when you're laser focused, you help people help you. And here's a perfect example. If I called you up and I told you that I was in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn right now, and I'm hungry and I need your help, you would be confused. You say, well, Mike, are you with people? Are you in the mood for fast food? Or are you a vegetarian? But if I called you up and said, Stina, I'm in Bay Ridge and I want a really good burger, that's specific. And even if you're not a burger person, you're going to be able to find someone to help me pretty quickly. And so if you think about how many of us go about sharing what we do, when we're not focused, it confuses other people.
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. I never thought of it from that perspective, but I've seen the miracle of being laser focused on a goal, not putting it on someone or kind of forcing them to help me, but just kind of, hey, this is where I'm at. This is the direction I'm going. And it's amazing that people that were friends of friends of friends said, oh, I know someone that can help you. And then 3 days later, a friend of a friend of a friend hooked me up. And yeah, happens all the time. So, Mike, I want to ask you, of all your experiences in entrepreneurship, what would you say has been your greatest lesson or takeaway so far?
Oh, my, the greatest lesson or takeaway. Well, I always go back to this one story of missing a flight in Canada or to Canada. I was actually in Newark Airport, New Jersey, and I had to be to Toronto in the morning to pick up a bunch of West African drums and do a corporate training with the Canadian Mental Health Association in the location that I was at. And I missed my flight in Newark, New Jersey. It just wasn't going to happen. And the bad thing was that this company paid me in advance, like everything. And I freaked out because I had actually spent the money already. And, I hadn't delivered, and my flight was missed. And so I ran right down to the rent-a-car place and got a van And I never drink Red Bull, but I got some Red Bull and I was blasting some hip hop and I drove as fast as I could. I think I broke the law in the level of speed that I was going at to get to Canada. And I remember crossing the border at like 7 a.m. and the person who hired me texting me saying, "Hey, did you get in okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I was sweaty. I hadn't showered. I was looking scruffy. But I got there and I told everyone the story about what happened. I was very honest with them. I said, "Don't come near me. I haven't showered." But here's why. And they said something very powerful to me, that I was worth every penny and more that they paid for me. And it taught me a lesson in being committed to delivering to clients. That sometimes you have to go above and beyond and not care just to deliver. That's the important thing. And it shows how committed you are to your business.
Wow, that is a tremendous story. And it goes to show that I bet before the situation happened, if someone had told you this is going to happen, you're going to have to do X, Y, Z, you probably would have said it's just not possible. I'm going to have to cancel. And that goes to show that when you really put like forth the commitment and say there is no back door, I'm going forward, I will do this, and I will complete it to the best of my ability, that what you can make happen is a miracle sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. And yeah, if you would have told me that was going to happen to me, I would have been like, yeah, right, I'm not doing that. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that was an amazing story. And it's been so wonderful having you out here share your wisdom and gifts tonight. Before we head on out, though, I want you to let everyone know where they can find out more about you and check out your website.
Sure. You can find me at my website, which is unleashyourgroove.com. And like you, I've started a podcast called The Mike Veny Show. I'm on Stitcher and iTunes if you want to check it out. And the first episode is actually about networking. So I go into detail on some really practical tips to help everyone make more money. Let me say that again, make more money through networking.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so, so important to build that real, true connection. And by the way, where did you decide that name, Unleash Your Groove? I love that.
You know, like everything in my business, it just came to me one day. I think I was out drinking with some friends and being silly, and it just came out, and I'm like, that sounds cool. You know, and that was it. You know, a lot of times, and again, for those of you listening, the best ideas don't take much thought. They're already there. Yeah. So surrender and surrender.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true, Mike. You sit here and you're contemplating. Sometimes when you beat yourself up, it's the moment where you just let go that bam, it just smacks you upside the head.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, I want to thank you, Mike, and I wanted to have everyone go to unleashyourgroove.com today, find out more about Mike. And Mike, I want to thank you for coming to Savvy Central Radio tonight and sharing your gifts and wisdom.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the Racing to Success Minute with Nadine Lajoie. Are you nervous when you are doing a presentation in front of a group, or even when you are doing one-on-one, or when you have a new date? The best way is to prepare yourself with a template. You just put different bullet points, and you need to structure, especially in a presentation, into the template. And you practice, and practice over again. Like motorcycle racing, you cannot go in the race without practicing again and again. So be sure you apply that principle into your life and your business. You will be less nervous more and more you are practicing. So this is Nadine at NadineRacing.com.
Here's our show with Brad Raney. Hi, Brad. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you?
Christina, thank you for having me. It's a great program. Heard a number of your podcasts previously, and just thrilled to be on with you talking to your audience.
Well, I'm very happy to have you out here. You have an extensive background. You are the CEO and founder of a personal development company called Personal Performance Partnerships. And, we have a number of guests listeners and past guests who have also started their dream business. And before we get started with you sharing a little bit about your wisdom and knowledge, share a little bit about your backstory. How did you come to working and forming your own personal development company?
Well, I kind of grew up in an entrepreneurial household. My mother ran what was, when I was in it, it was a kindergarten, but after that time, kindergartens got moved into schools. It was more like a preschool, but she actually ran it for like 50 years. Finally retired about 3 or 4 years ago in her 80s. My dad had a number of businesses through time, and I actually started my first business about 6 or 7 months out of college. Got an honors degree in broadcast management and thought I wanted to be on that side of the production performance side of things. And I was in a news department and just found an opportunity to make more money on the weekends, shooting and creating tapes for corporations and that type of thing than I was making during the week. So I started. That was the first real business. But over time, I was in media for about 25 years in sales and management, which involved a lot of recruiting, coaching, training, trying to get people up to the next level. I always tried to coach and train from an individual type of perspective in the confine of a team goal. If you can have each person reach their personal best, reaching a team goal is pretty easy. So rather than trying to, beat everybody up for the ones that weren't making it, I tried to work real hard with the ones that were, as well as the ones that wanted help. And there's a point in time where you can't reach everybody. So sometimes you have to decide whether that person is going to fit or maybe they're in the wrong role, and you make those assessments. Within that, I've always been at a level, some kind of coach or leader. I kept finding myself in leadership positions. I was junior class president. I was head of a whole bunch of clubs, and usually it wasn't of my doing. I remember in high school when they asked me to run for junior class president, I was like, why? And they're like, well, everybody likes you and you're smart and you could be a real good guy. I'm like, I've got, I'm playing basketball, I'm playing tennis, all these after school curricular stuff. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And basically they said, look, all you have to do is you have to write a 3-minute speech and go stand up in front of the group and give it. And that's really all you have to do. There's no campaigning or anything. I'm like, well, okay, whatever. So I about an hour before this thing, I sat outside of a class and got a piece of paper and wrote myself a few notes and got up and got through with it and said, thanks very much, stuck it in my pocket. And it was almost a landslide. It was like 97% people that wanted me to be. And it was like one of those things that it just started to happen, those opportunities where either I had a creative solution or I would listen more or I would just find a way around it, or we get people's attitude the right way to make sure we're all working hard and smart. And people, I guess, saw that, and I've been constantly given opportunities to run something or challenge to go to the next level by bringing others with me or solve. I mean, it just constantly happened. So I don't know that I ever set out to do it. I think it was sort of in the DNA, and had the opportunity to start after being in broadcasting for 25 years, working for some big corporations and some smaller ones. I had the opportunity to start this business full time, and it was really because of a book that I wrote that just kind of took off and did its own thing. And it got to a point where at the end of 2011, my wife said, okay, you just turned 50, and not only are you burning the candle at both ends, you're torching it in the middle. You worked 361 days this year. I know the 4 days you didn't work because I counted them. You're working a full-time job. You're doing this other thing. What are you going to do? Is this a business? Is it a hobby that you make money with? Or what are you going to do? You can't do both. And she was right. And she's the love of my life and smartest person I know. And she challenged me, and she was right. And so the beginning of 2012, I quit my job making, mid six figures and very comfortable and all kinds of benefits to do this full time. And I wouldn't take anything for it. 2011 wasn't the greatest economic year ever, but the way that my dad explained to me something many years ago finally clicked in my head. And it's like, there's never a perfect time to get married. There's never a perfect time to have a child. There's never a perfect time to start a business. If you wait for those perfect moments to do something, you'll never do anything. So I knew it was time, and got the business up and running. Started writing a second book, got it out last year. And between the two of them, it's just been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of travel, and it's been the opportunity to share some gifts that I've been given for just helping people get to the next level and really for them being the best person that they can be, and using the talents of writing and speaking that I also have to kind of make those things happen. And it's sort of a combination. Sometimes I'm an author and sometimes I'm a speaker and sometimes I'm both. It just kind of depends on what the client needs or what the challenges are. But, having your own business is really like having a petulant child. Yeah. Occasionally it minds and most of the time it doesn't, but all the time it's going to get your attention. And that's really what I try to do is I guess it was Richard Branson that said, if you're not scared, if you're not, getting yourself to a level to where you're at some point frightened during the week, then you're not trying to push yourself as far as you can go.
You're not living your fullest potential.
That's true. And I mean, I absolutely believe that because there's probably at least a day a week or a part of a day a week where I'm like, okay, what now? What's next? Where, what's going to happen? And I'm trying to take care of what's in front of me, or I'm trying to solve a problem, or I'm thinking about, the next opportunity or something where I feel uncomfortable, but that uncomfortable feeling is really the engine running. That's really when you're sitting in a car at the red light and you feel the rumble. That's what that is for me. And it's like, okay, good. I know I'm running. If it ever stops, Christina, I know I'm probably going to have to stop what I'm doing because I won't be good at it. If I get bored with it, or it's just not that hum stops in the engine, then I know that there's a problem.
Well, there's probably a new direction for you to go in. What I'm picking up from your story, Brad, is that you continually followed not only your heart, but your intuition. You were having a pull to go in a certain direction and opened yourself up to opportunities. Now, from your experience working with a number of individuals and business owners and such, what have you seen that really stops business owners and people from really reaching their dreams and success?
Well, oftentimes, and there's a number of it, and really each one of these is going to be individual from the specific person that you're talking to. Some have more than one, but there are some common ones. One can actually be the fear of success. They really don't know what's going to happen when they get there. They may have had like naysayers in their past. They may have made some bad decisions in their past. Actually, in the second book, I actually call these mountain goats. And these are people that as you climb to the top of your mountain, when you get close to the summit, it's the hardest part of the climb. It's where it's the actual steepest. Well, out in the Great Western area of our country, when you climb a mountain, one of the things that you're going to encounter are these mountain goats. They're very territorial. They don't want you on their mountain. They're specifically built to live in that environment, and they will literally knock you off if you let them. They don't want you there. Those occur in our lives all the time, and they may be, like I said, they may be in the form of negative people. They may be in the form of just an uncomfortable feeling of not knowing what to do. It could be the other side. It could be that you're too cocky and you don't ask for help, that you don't try to get some professionals around you or people that have walked the path before, and you start making mistakes. It could be that you make bad hires. You went out and tried to grow a company too fast, and then you're in over your head. You're not making the revenue to the way you need to make it, and you're having to cut staff, and that cuts the quality of what you're doing. But there's really three ways that I try to get people when I sit down with them to understand that there's some steps that you can take. One is getting a very clear vision and a plan. I have a thing called SWOT 2.0, the ultimate analysis and planning tool. And really what we do is we take and we go through every strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat and try to figure out, how those relate. And then we apply SMART goals to the things that we're trying to actually do going forward. And if it's not specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive, it doesn't make the action plan list. And you get that action plan list and you look up and there's 25 things on it. And when you can't do 25 things well, we have to pick out the top 4 or 5. And then once we have those down, then we assign people to them with specific deadlines. And it's amazing how quickly things are happening because you've got a real workable list. They've come from you, they've come from your team, or doing a 360 of those around you. And then after you get this plan, then you really need to build a team. And really, if you're like a solo owner or someone who's got a couple people in your organization, what this may mean is creating a board of directors that may not actually be a real board of directors. What you want is an advisory committee. You want people around you who will tell you what time it is. So if you ever thought that you're going to have a company that's large enough to have a full board of directors where there's 10 people on a board, have those people in a regular conversation. Get cocktails with them, take them to lunch, buy them coffee, and ask them, if I were to ever create a company, you'd be my director of finance. I'm in this situation right now. How should I handle it? And listen to the advice. Take counsel from those around you who know you well, who will, again, tell you the truth, because that'll give you an opportunity to figure out how to overcome that challenge. And then, maybe something you didn't see. It's really tough to see the forest for the trees sometimes. Sometimes you need somebody in the hot air balloon, 20,000 feet above it to go, oh, I see, you're bumping your head.
Yeah.
And then the other one is execute the plan and don't give up. Because what's going to happen is you are going to run into mountain goats. You are going to run into things that are going to stop you. And if you've had enough things happen in your life that aren't positive, or you made some mistakes, or you're afraid to lose the money that you took out of your 401k to put in this business, if you spend your time trying to worry about the things that may go wrong, you're going to miss the opportunity to do the things that will go right. And that happens a lot. People get to the point where they go, oh, I just can't do it. The vast majority of new businesses will fail or close within 18 months. And that's usually because they're underfunded, they don't have the planning, they don't have the people around them, or they just, honestly get scared. They get to the point where they don't know what else to do, and it's more comfortable. It's easier to put that Snuggie back on and go back to work for somebody else than it is to throw it off and say, you know what, I'm going to take the cold, I'm going to take the winds, I'm going to deal with it because I know on the other side of this lake is where I want to go, but I got to keep rowing the boat. And that's, for some people maybe they're not built for it. Maybe it's this lofty thing on the hill of owning my own business and being my own boss and own individual with own goals. And they've worked for big corporations for years and they're just frustrated. Well, now they're looking around going, I'm out here by myself and this is real scary, when they're really not. There are people around them that can help. There are, the chambers of commerce in your area. There are meetup groups. There are networking groups. There's all kinds of people. If you can't find somebody in a group on LinkedIn that does what you do and can offer advice, you're just not trying. There's hundreds of thousands of groups. So there's real help out there for everyone if they'll just kind of look around. But I think if you try those three things, make sure you have a vision, make sure you got people around you that will hold you accountable, and then execute the plan without relent, I think you'll find that there's some real success out there for everyone.
Yeah. And here also what I got from hearing you there is that there might be the necessary people you have in your life might not be the people that can help you. Maybe your family and friends are a bit too close, but like you said, there's LinkedIn groups, there's a lot of business groups out there, the Chamber of Commerce. And here, my friend who's a business owner relies heavily on a lot of motivational videos of billionaires and very successful people who posted videos on YouTube of how they created their success. And he uses those videos constantly every day as kind of like mantra to keep him on target for success. So
I think that's an outstanding way to do it. I guess I do the same thing and didn't really think about it. I watch a lot of TED Talks because, but being a speaker and being in front of people, I always like to hone my craft, and people that have exactly 18 minutes or whatever it is and want to get out, a whole bunch of salient points, and there's no slides and there's nothing to back up. It's just you and a microphone. I love watching folks like that. And some of them are extremely inspirational. Some of them it's just coming out of them, and it's just very, it just oozes from their pores. Some are very orchestrated and you can tell they've practiced it a lot.
Yeah.
But the key is they all have a different message. And if you can take what I call pearls of wisdom from those people and kind of string together, don't be them, be you. You got to do you first. But as long as you do you, but learn from someone else and maybe hone your skill just a little bit better, find something different that should change the color of your business acumen. As long as you're moving up the mountain, as long as you're trying to get to that next level, everything's going to be good as long as you keep your eyes open and try to learn as you go. There are people out there, though, for sure, that can help.
Yeah. And you also mentioned having the accountability factor, which is very important. And some people have that in the way of a coach or a trainer or a mentor. Sometimes your friends aren't the best people. They'll let you off the hook and be like, oh, it's okay. You've had a tough week. Why don't you just chill and go for cocktails with us? And maybe those are not the people you want to be your accountability partners. But someone like you, Brad, might be a good person, or another coach out there, another trainer to help you keep on target. And, you mentioned something very important before, and that was people letting stand in their way of reaching success. Sometimes it's a matter of just investing in the right place. And that very well might be a coach. It might be staff, because you mentioned if you have the proper staff, that will keep you down. I feel you want to say something. Go.
I hear you, and that's really what it comes down to, because everybody's there's not the good thing is that if you're in this motivational, this training space, everybody responds to the individual that's in front of you. I've been on day-long things where there's people speaking, for 3, 4, 5 hours at a time, and there may be 9 different speakers, 10 different speakers, and you'll listen and you'll take the messages and you'll boil them down, and a lot of them are fairly similar in content.
Yeah.
But the people in the room light up based on who's in front of them. They light up on the personality. They light up on the style. They light up on the vernacular, something that sounds like them, that makes them feel like they can do it. Well, that's what happens here. I may not be the right guy for everybody, but I know I'm the right guy for some people, because what happens when I speak and when any kind of general session like that, an opening keynote or something, there's this bell-shaped curve, Christine, and it's really cool. A guy told me this a number of years ago when I was just starting out. And he said, look, here's what's going to happen. And he's absolutely right. He said, you're going to find 10, 15% of the people are going to ignite. They're going to get you. They're going to think you're funny. They're going to get the jokes. You're going to look up on your phone when you get done. They've already followed you on Twitter. They'll follow you out to your car and ask you questions. You've got them. There'll also be 5 to 10% of the people, maybe less, but that's the general number of the people in the room that don't give a big fat baby's butt what you're talking about. They don't get it. They don't connect, and you're not going to reach them. Your job is to get that what's called a movable middle, that 60 to 70% of people in the middle, and get them to go from that was interesting over to action. And that's where you have to concentrate your time. You've already won the ones that you're going to win. You're not going to win the ones you're not going to get. Don't worry about them. Don't worry about the guy in the back in the 200-person crowd who's asleep. You're not going to, nothing you do for him. The people that are now thinking that was interesting and move to actually, do something about it are the ones where I try to spend the most time. And I've had people that have come back to me a year later and said, I saw you speak here last July, and I wrote down a bunch of notes, and I'm really ready to talk to you about them now. And I look at my calendar going, that's 13 months ago. What do you mean last July? But it takes people a certain amount of time to connect it, and then they have to have that fuse. One of the words that I use a lot of times is ignite. And it really is a point where you're ready to do something. If it's me, if it's something I said, if it's something you heard at the right time, if it's just a matter of fact that you're finally ready, you've either had enough or you're scared or you see an opportunity and you just need some encouragement, whatever that final strike of the match is, that's where I want to try to be to help you. And it can happen in an instant. It can happen over time. Like I said, in some cases, it can take years. So but that is the key. There are people out there, and don't try 1 or 2 people and go, it's not working. I can't find anybody. You haven't found that match yet that really connects with you. And that's what I would encourage people to do. Go, these coaches are all the same. We're all individuals. We all have our own set of hopes, values, dreams, experiences, all stuff that we bring to the table. And I guarantee you they're different. So take them in, ask a lot of questions and just try to find the right fit.
Yeah.
Kind of like dating, I guess, from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. And I liked what you said about when you're ready and that fuse is lit. That is sometimes it takes time. I mean, there's been people who have come on my show and done business with me years later, because that's when it really is like, okay, now I'm ready. So that's another thing, because I think sometimes people think when they go into business, okay, I met a bunch of people, they should be buying from me. Why aren't they? Sometimes it's not like a customer for today. It's a customer, 2 years down the road. But, as you said, the people who are really connected to you, pay attention to those, the ones that couldn't give a, whatever, and it's not working for them. It's quite all right, because there's other people that will be just perfect for them. But, I thought of something, Brad. Now, why is it sometimes that we'll go to a wonderful event and we'll hear someone like you or another wonderful mentor or trainer, and we'll get so much wonderful feedback and we'll start implementing it, but then we slip back into negativity and going back to our old ways and habits? Why is that we slip back?
Well, it's human nature. It's really the gene pool that you've grown up with, or that you've been kind of taught. And it can happen a lot within families. My wife and I have been together 26 years in just a few weeks. Her family and my family couldn't be more different in the way that I think we were both raised in a similar fashion, but the styles and the background are totally different. Her family don't take a lot of risks. If they've got an investment, it's in a very conservative kind of fund. They both worked in union type jobs and had great retirements. They don't understand why I'm trying to run my own business and not working for somebody else that can give me benefits. Mm-hmm. They don't get it. Mm-hmm. Well, I grew up in a household where I watched my mother, she was always at work. She was always running a business. And in her kindergarten when I was growing up, that's where I went after, was there for 3 or 4 years, to begin with. And then after school, I walked down the street and went to her kindergarten and was there for years. I watched her work every day at her own business. I watched my dad, although he was a TV anchor for a number of years. I watched toward the end of his years, he ran his own businesses again. So that was my environment. That was the reality that I had. Her reality was stability. Make sure you get that, that gold watch. You work for one company 20 years, and I don't think that kind of stuff exists anymore. My kids don't see that. They understand that they're probably going to have multiple jobs within maybe multiple careers by the time that they stop working. It's just the way the world works now. But it really goes back to what you've learned. And if you get to a point where you get coaching and you get fired up and you get some things together and you're moving, the only reason that you're going to slip back is because it either stops or you don't know what to do next. That's why the plan is so important, and being able to say, here's where I want to be in 12 months. I have to be able to visualize it. And I don't, some people will say, shouldn't you be doing 3 and 5 year plans? I'm like, look, let's get through 12 months. Can we get through a year first and then worry about 3 and 5? But what you have to have within that 12 months is you got to have mile markers. You got to be able to say, at month 3, we're 25% in. Are we 25% to wherever it is that we want to go? Can we say we're ahead or behind? And if we're ahead, great. Can we add something, or do we think we can get there quicker? Or if we're behind, what do we change? And you can't wait till month 10 or 11 and go, it didn't work, because you never checked along the way. If you're in a car driving a 500-mile trip, it only goes 350 miles, you better plan somewhere to get gas before you get to mile 349 and there are no gas stations. You're going to run out. The same thing happens, and that's really what people don't do. Is they look up and go, "Well, I'm out of money. I don't know what happened. I did all this marketing, and it did." And you've got to check up on the plan. You've got to make sure it's working. You've got to raise the hood and look under there and make sure the engine is working, because it may not be, or it may be working wonderful. And then if it is, you feel great. You've got another few months or a quarter of the year that is going to stay with you, regardless of bad stuff that happens, because you've seen that there's positive movement. But it really comes back to that specific DNA. And if you expect that you're going to fail and you take your eyes off that long-form horizon prize that you're after, you're going to fail. You will eventually talk yourself back into it, because you've become friends with Nostradamus. He's moved into your guest room and you're predicting the future. And you're right. You're looking for things that are bad and you're going to find them. And I just believe totally differently. I think each day is a gift, and that you have this day in front of you, and you open this little box every morning, and it could be an average everyday Thursday. It could be the best Thursday of your life, or it could be a bad day box. I got a mother who's 87 now that has health problems. The stats say I'm going to outlive her. I don't really want to do that, but more than likely I'm going to open the box one day and I'm going to have to deal with it. The good thing about those boxes is they last 24 hours, and you get another one tomorrow to open again. You get a new present each day. If you stay in this moment, if you stay right here and understand these 24 hours are now your gift, it's really hard to get depressed. It's really hard to back up when you go, what am I going to do with these 24 hours? Not what are these 24 hours going to do to me? It's a totally different mindset, and that's what I work on the vast majority of people with, is attitude, energy, effort, some of the vowels that I created, the 7 habitual characteristics that start with the E-I-O-U. Attitude, energy, and effort happen to be the first 3 in the alphabet that I created, but they're also the first 3 that are that important. If you don't have the right attitude, you don't have energy to go with it, and you don't apply that energy in a positive manner, you're not moving anywhere. You're not getting off of square one. And that's what happens when people get stuck and they get afraid. They stop thinking it's going to happen. They stop using their energy, and they certainly don't push the button to have the energy come out. And then the train stops on the tracks, and you're like, oh, we can't go anywhere. That's right, because you stopped the momentum, and now you got to restart the engine. Yeah. So that's what happens. I really think people just fall back into their old habits. And it takes people around them that'll, like I said, tell them what time it is and call you out and go, did you follow up on that? How'd the meeting go? Did you need any help? Can it help you get prepared for the one? Making sure you've got people around you that will care, that will, make sure that you're staying on track. And that's what I try to do, because, I think I can do it all. I'm a guy. I don't ask for directions in Home Depot. I'll wander the aisles and eventually find it, when I probably could go to the front and they'd send me directly to the aisle that I needed. But you can't do that in business. You can't do it trying to run your own company. You'll waste a lot of time and probably a lot of money, and then you'll think that you're not built for running your own business, but you probably are.
Yeah. And those are some really good points. And I like that you mentioned the course correction, because I think all of us can get into the idea that, hey, this isn't working, so it's just wrong. But sometimes all it needs is a slight tweak, that you just need to do something a little bit differently. And that's all that needs to change, is that you need to do something a little bit differently. But also keeping on target and having those people around you to really help you keep on target is so important. Whatever calls for me, Brad, when I first started my very first event, I didn't have the cash flow for it, because you had said, I believe I can do something, so therefore I can, even though I can't see the results sometimes. And sometimes that's also what it takes. Sometimes you have to be able to step out, hold yourself accountable, go in the right direction, take the steps to do that. Meaning, don't sit here and just do mantras all day long and hope that, God will just drop it in your lap. Take steps towards your goal and in the anticipation that it will work out. Because my very first event, I didn't have the cash flow, but I went forward. I started calling schools and churches, asking if I could, use their space for a lesser amount or actually for free. And most of them said no, they were quite pricey. But 2 weeks out, I found a place that actually I used to use some number of years ago when I was in school. And they had just opened a new location, and they said, we know you very well. You used to come here for years. We will give you our space to use. You can pay us the day of the event. Now, most event places want you to pay 50% down, 50% at the time of the event or 2 weeks before the event. So that was a blessing, but it was because I started to take the steps forward, even though it appears that it was impossible. And I think that's a good point sometimes, because I think we can put up our own roadblocks.
Well, there's no doubt, and this is the thing that you have to understand, that I try to make sure people really grasp onto. Hope is not a strategy. Hope's a great word. Hope is wonderful. Hope's a car, though. Hope's a car that sits in your driveway. It's pointed in the right direction. It's all full of gas. The engine's been tuned. It's a beautiful vehicle, but it will not drive itself. So there's an acronym that I have for the word drive in the first book. That's about, the T is being thankful for what you've gone through. Don't throw it away. The H is hope is not a strategy. And it's good to know that you've got a positive outlook, but if you're waiting around for things to change, more than likely they're going to stay the same. They may get worse because there are people around you that do have a plan that are rolling right past you. And the attitude, this is a great visual for having a plan. If you've ever been to an airport that they have the moving sidewalks between the gates, the people that are on the moving sidewalk have a plan. They know they have to be at gate 224 in 18 minutes, and there's a quicker way to get there than hoofing it between the gates themselves, dragging their bag. They have a plan. They're rolling right by people 3 times as fast as the people that are walking, who are wandering around trying to find gate 224, who drop their cell phone. They don't have a plan. That's what happens. And having hope is great, but it will not get you anywhere. The R in that word, by the way, is revamp your plan of attack. And that's what we're talking about at this point, where if you've gotten to the point where it's not working, or it's not working as quickly, or it's not working the way you want, have the courage to make change. It's okay. It's okay. You stop and go, wait a minute, what are we doing? And that's where the mythical board of directors comes in. You pull people together and go, here's what I did. Here's where we are. Here are the results. What do you think? And it may be a very obvious minor tweak. It may be you got the wrong product. I mean, it may be a big time problem, maybe a little problem, but either way, you need to know it and then have the courage to make change. And that's what a lot of people, I built this business. This is what I want. This is how I want it. I don't want to change. Well, if you don't want to change, good luck. You got a 50-50 shot of making it.
Yeah. Or maybe even less than that. But I love that about, I love what you said about hope, because I think some people, and that's kind of what bothered me about the whole idea of The Secret, is I know it wasn't just meant to be where you just sit back and wait for stuff to happen to you, but sometimes it seems like that's how people approach the whole idea of the power of success, that you just say powerful mantras and think good thoughts and visualize, and it happens for you. And I really believe that action has to be part of it. Sometimes you won't see all the steps to get there, but each individual step. But as you say, if you have a plan, you make course corrections, and you have a power of faith that it will work out, but with action behind it, not this sitting back, willy-nilly and Pollyanna, it's just going to happen for me.
No, and really, that whole team aspect is critical, and this is another great visual that I use along the mountain kind of theme. If you want to go to Kilimanjaro, and let's say you're an expert mountain climber, you've been doing it for years, you got all the gear, you got every GPS thing known to man, you got a satellite phone, you're ready to go. You go to Kilimanjaro and start up the slopes by yourself.
Yeah.
The Sherpa is going to come out of the little building there, stop you and go, sir, where's your team? Like, no, I'm an expert. I got it all. I got everything I need right here. I can do it myself. And they're going to say, I'm sorry, you can't go up the mountain alone. It's stupid. It's dangerous. And I'm going to find you in a big ice ball in a couple of days and have to roll you back down. No, you can't go up the mountain alone. Why would you try to run a business? Why would you try to make decisions on building a real plan by yourself? Why? There's no reason. There is a team of people. You can create them. They're around you, and they're happy to help, by the way, because you're probably helping them with the conversation. There's a two-way street here. You're not taking from people by involving them. You're actually giving them something as well. And you're giving them, if nothing else, you're making them feel good. You're giving them a big eye on their chest, telling them that they're important because you value their opinion. And you bring them in, and you may find that they need the knowledge that once they say it, they're like, I can't believe it came out of me. And they relate as well. There's this interaction that occurs, but it's critical to at least ask, to at least create a core group of people that you can relate to. If you have a company and you have some employees, you definitely want to rely on them, but that's not the only sounding board. You need people that are in the space with you who've done it before, maybe in a competitive environment where they may have had experience there. They can give you some advice. Maybe it's people that are suppliers to the industry because they see trends. Ask questions. Yeah. People that are out there, and like I said, if you can't find something on your phone right now, you're not trying. There are things out there where you can get involved, and people can give you advice, and then you have to decide whether to take it or not, or whether it fits your situation. But at least ask. I mean, at least give yourself the opportunity to build that team and to climb the mountain with an entire mountain climbing party, not just you trying to go up a huge cliff. Yeah.
Well, I totally believe in community, and I know for a fact that no one truly successful got there by themselves, and that we do need each other. But I would also point out that there are wonderful people out there, groups and meetups and other places where you can come together in collaboration, masterminds, where you can create your successful business together. But I would also say, get a trainer like Brad, or if you're not up to par and say sales or something, or you need a mentor, because having that outside perspective of someone who's maybe 5 steps ahead of you will be instrumental in helping you get to where you need to get to. So Brad, I want to thank you again for coming to Savvy, but before we leave, please let everyone know where they can find out more about you, get your wonderful books.
Well, I try to make things really simple, Christina, because I'm not that bright. So it's Brad Raney, RANEY.com. It's brad@bradraney.com is the email address. You can get each of the 2 books are there. There's just so you know, the initial book is on how to find your perfect job using these 7 habitual characteristics that I kind of define as the vowels: attitude, energy, effort, integrity, intensity, outlook, and uniqueness. And that book is there along with the DVD that we did. It was kind of a live version of one of the shows that we did about the book. The other one that came out last year is called Reach Your Peak, Become CEO of Your Success. And it's all about the things you and I have talked about this evening. It literally has the roadmap in it. It's like 16 chapters, but they're literally 16 individual steps. And you can read it in a weekend. It's a couple hundred pages. That's not how you use the book. You use it. You go through a chapter. It's got some to-do things at the end. You execute them, and then you move to the next one. It's like building a house. You can't put the roof on until you build the walls. Yeah. So the book is built like that. All of those are on the website, as well as some podcasts like yours will be up there very soon. There's all kinds of testimonials. There's videos. There's lots of stuff there to learn more about me, and there's a contact page as well as email address that we talked about. Happy to help. Happy to I travel the country, so if you've got a runway, I'm sure I can get there.
I love that. Are you a pilot, by the way?
No, I wish I was. That would save me a lot of time. But I don't have the John Travolta thing where you can. I'm in Florida, but I don't have where I can pull the plane up to my house yet. I haven't gotten that far down the road.
Wow, because when you said if you have a runway, I could get there, I was like, "Wow, are you a pilot? Do you fly in it? That would be really cool." Well, well, Brad, I want to thank you. This has been very insightful and wonderful having you out here today, sharing your wonderful wisdom and gift today. Thank you so much for coming to Savvy Central Radio.
Christina, thanks for having me on the show, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and perhaps we'll get together again soon.
You betcha. Take care.
Savvy Central Radio is home to over 100,000 listeners per month globally and runs in syndication on 8 AM and FM platforms, including iHeartRadio and 6 podcasting platforms. To find out more about our paid sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest and find out how we can help you get your message out to the world, call 718 area code 713-2289 or email at savvycentralradio@gmail.com.